My name is Natasha. I am 20 years old, actually. I'm about to be 21 soon. I major in economics and I minor in sustainability sciences. And I'm a Kenyan feminist. And so today we're going to be doing, wait, I have to do like the how to get away with murder intro. I tried to write that really quickly. Anyways, Kenyan feminism for dummies. And so I start. Now, my content. First, we're going to define patriarchy, our best friend. We love him. And then we're going to go into why patriarchy is the source. Okay, nice. Is the source of all inequality. Then connect that to colonialism and capitalism. Then at the end, we're going to have misogyny and misogynoir in Kenya and Africa. And then I'm going to show the intersectionality between patriarchy, capitalism, and colonialism. And then at the end, I'm going to show why feminism is the solution to all things and why everyone should be a feminist. So, what is patriarchy? At the base level, this is basically a social system that says men are above women. It exalts manhood. It basically means that a man is like the ultimate form, and specifically a white man in this case, but that will be further demystified. It demonizes womanhood. It sees women as weak. It sees them as beneath the man. It is contingent on hierarchy. And that is really important because that connects all the isms of the world, hierarchy. And that is something that we get from patriarchy itself, especially when you have a standard for being, which would be a white man. It hurts everyone. Men, women, and everyone else, because we're very inclusive. So it hurts every single person, especially even the ones that propagated, which is the men and women. We also do it too. It relies on gender roles, rigidity, and conformity. Basically, that the man should go to war, women should stay in the kitchen, that sort of thing. Tunafaa tuoshe vyombo. And then the men sit there and do nothing as usual. And then we just do everything like childbearing and child rearing. It is the dominant global system, meaning that it can be found in very many different ethnic communities. It's kind of crazy. It's like the one thing that everyone kind of has in common. Matriarchies, we'll talk about them because they're kind of like a pseudo myth. They're not really existent. The African matriarchy is a myth, especially if you think about the fact that we have FGM. If Africa was really matriarchal, then women would not be getting their breasts ironed or their clitori cut off. So everyone should really ponder that. It shows up in everything. It shows up in hip hop. It shows up in gengeton. We don't even have female border riders because they're scared of the customers, being the men, of course. And that's how we can see that patriarchy propagates itself and hurts the society. The origin of it is fear of control. So basically, we can give birth and men cannot. When it comes to survival, owning the means of production is very important. And so through biopower, men want to control women. They want to put them down. They want to seize the means of production. And that is also like the basis of capitalism. But through women's wombs, they get to have control of the human race's survival and also propagating their own BS. Also, them I love girl too much is what I have written down. I think that men really, really want women in their lives and need them. And the best way to make sure that someone stays in your life is to make sure that they fear you, that they feel as if they are not free, and that they must stay with you. So they want and need women so much that they feel as if they have to control them and they do not have wombs. Yep, it is contingent on women. Yeah, and that is the basis of capitalism. Patriarchy as a source of inequality. So, as I said, there's a standard for dignity. Basically, if you are a man, then you get to live a good life. It looks like how women are always in fear of something happening to them. This thing being called it is rape. This is usually one of the biggest fears that women have, but men in comparison do not think that rape is the worst thing that could happen to you because it is not something that actively is a threat to men. It is although a threat to women. So we can see that when it comes to the standard for dignity and the standard for humanity, men are the ones that's how we measure what is important, what is not important. This can also look like small things like cars being designed for a man. Corporate culture. I think corporate culture is very patriarchal. I don't think it allows for women to have periods. I think everyone's expected to be at 100% at all times, which doesn't count for the many phases that women go throughout the month. I think that when it comes to dress code, women are the ones that are being hurt the most, and it's usually because of women's proportions around who women are, the sexualization of the female body. So if you are a man, then the dress code is most likely going to favor you, and you would get less punishment, you would get less critique, you would feel safer. And then when it comes to racism being added onto this, it makes white malehood the ultimate form within patriarchy, within capitalism, because these are the ones who are the richest in the world. They are the ones who have the money. They are the ones who can get away with a lot of different crimes. If you think about first world countries, they're mostly white countries, and this was how it was propagated through imperialism and moved to the whole world. And this system was spread especially through violence. I do believe that patriarchy, like the language of patriarchy is violence. I do not think that, I know that if feminism was the dominant culture, then violence would not be a need. There would be no need for war. There would be no need there would actually be resolutions happening instead of fighting, because that's not something that feminism would want from us. So the strongest males dominate over the system. This is basically dominance, and this is competition. Sounds a lot like capitalism. So I do think that patriarchy is the father of capitalism, and within that, that's the basis for all things. Wait, I should probably be writing things down. Okay, so I'm gonna try my best to keep this clean. I think at the bottom, the base for everything is patriarchy. And this relies on hierarchy, and I think that white malehood did become the basis for humanity because it was spread through violence, and they had the weapons to colonize and kill a bunch of people. So they became number one. So misogyny, how can we see it in very many different cases? FGM, control of women's wombs. When we talk about rape, we are controlling women's autonomy, women's dignity. It's not taken seriously, of course, because it's not a threat that's usually brought upon to men. Foot binding, which is a practice in Asia where they basically make women's feet as small as possible. It's outlawed by now, but it is, especially when you think about the pedophilic nature within Asian countries, a lot of it is definitely about control and making women as small as possible, hungry as possible, just almost delirious to control them. Yeah, and also the ironing of breasts is a way to control women's bodies. FGM is a way to control women's desires and make sure that they feel as if their desire should be contingent on men. And within patriarchy, we get racism, a pillar, because again, white malehood is the ultimate form. Because a lot of, we talk about anti-blackness. When white people had the white man's burden, it was not only to spread religion, it was not only to spread resources, it was to spread whiteness. It was to make sure that we do not exist as we are. And low-key, they've kind of done that because Nairobi is really, really gentrified. I can't, but let me not say that. That's a bit too incriminating. But we are suffering consequences of blackness being erased, Africanness being erased, and it's very many different ethnic communities as well that have to fall in line when it comes to globalization and imperialism. So racism is born in that sense. Ableism is born because disabled people cannot participate as well as able-bodied people within capitalism. Disabled people become abnormal because they do not maximize profit. They cannot actively include themselves within capitalism. And yeah, capitalism is born, and tribalism is also born, because if you think about it, races could just be tribes, and we also need a way to compete within ourselves. So let me put racism, ableism, okay, so those are like my pillars for now. And within them, racism, we can find colorism. We can also find colorism and tribalism. We can find very many different things in here. I think also when we talk about ableism here, because it's a YAP lecture, I think I can go tangent. I think that a lot of people do not think that disabled people exist, that you guys do not, people do not see disabled people enough. I grew up around a lot of neurodivergent people, a lot of disabled people, so there's a lot of different things that I know disabled people need, but our infrastructure doesn't really cater for it, so there's not a lot of disabled people going around Kenya because they can't. There is no way for them to move around. A lot of different infrastructure, when we talk about Europe, allows for people with wheelchairs, for people with crutches to be able to move around very quickly. But yeah, because of globalization, here we are. Yeah. So colonialism and capitalism. But I feel like I've kind of explained a lot, so I'm just gonna rush through this. Settler colonialism as migration became kind of like the first step of imperialism. I do think that a lot of things can be boiled down to fear. And this was the fear of dying out, the fear of not surviving. So what did they have to do? They had to go dominate to other places. And that's basically how we get all of these different outposts. Why colonialism was even possible is because there were so many people who had already migrated outside of Europe into other different places, created outposts, and that is basically our first form of settler colonialism. I don't know if I can say that, but I don't think like white people are inherently evil. I think that fear can motivate people to do a lot of crazy things, such as patriarchy and such. But because patriarchy as a violent language already existed, it was very normal to go into people's homes and be violent about it and have weapons and all these different things. And this economics is basically modeled by old white guys who put utility maximization, profit maximization above community living, above sustainability practices, which is something that we kind of have in ethnic communities. Like, how can we make sure that everyone is eating? How can we make sure that everyone is fed and everyone is safe and healthy? And this led to slavery because, like, cheap labor. And that's, like, the racism part. And also, misogyny. Because a lot of things that we think about right now, things that are being produced within Global South, within Asia, it's usually women working in sweatshops. It's women on the fields, especially with the wage gap. It's way easier to, well, not way easier, it's kind of the norm to pay women less than you would pay men. So they work for less money because they, first of all, have to go home and take care of the kids because the men are not doing it. And so they need that money. So a lot of slavery, a lot of cheap labor from back then has kind of spilled into how globalization is built in today, just being imperialism from the Western side into the Eastern side. Yes, and this also brought about that, relative poverty, the demonization of ethnic cultures, that living in a hut is poor, even though it is just, suitable for the climate. That means that when you are wealthy, you must be close to whiteness in a certain way. I think, for example, when we look at Westlands, it's very European looking, and that is where the wealthy people live. But also, it's also a safer area. So that means there's a certain type of dignity that is rewarded when you are in proximity to whiteness. That is how you can live a dignified life, and it is very much exalted. Yes. Now, why is Kenyan feminism important? Why do we need to have that as a thing? What defines Kenyan feminism? I think that it's very important to know what issues are in your country. For example, in India, feminists focus more on child marriage, on feminist politics, them even being included in politics, on religion. But when it comes to Kenyan feminism, what we have to talk about classism. We must talk about it because misogyny is heavily experienced by lower class women. That is usually what happens when men feel emasculated within poverty. They're the ones especially since they live in unsafe areas. It is like, I don't know, when I come to Westlands, I'm like, okay, I can wear a crop top. Like, I can do this here, but I can't really do it if I'm somewhere else. We must talk about colonialism. We must talk about how that affected us when it came to misogyny, when it came to colorism, and of course, femicide, which is a really we're really leading in that one. So that's cool. Yes. So what is misogyny and misogyny? Misogyny is the hate of women This shows up a bunch in Kenya, unfortunately. FGM, child marriage, unequal division of physical and emotional labor. And I mean that, like, in relationships, men have no emotions, like, feel nothing. It's really odd. Women kind of take on a lot when it comes to emotional labor, but also the physical when it comes to domestic things that they do, like cooking and cleaning. And that is usually seen as a woman's problem, but also being kind of the emotional dustbin for Nairobi men. So that's fun. I'm having a great time dating here. So that is also something that people don't talk about, emotional labor within heterosexual relationships. Femicide, misogyny, the hate of Black women specifically. This looks like colorism. It looks like the disrespect of Black women. Like if we go to a club, a certain club down the street there, only some skin tones will be allowed to enter, or like they will be given priorities, the sexualization of the female body, because a lot of how being naked was sexualized in Africa was because, first of all, religion, of course, but also seeing Black women as exotic. And, we know about, was her name Sarah Batman, who was taken from South Africa to become kind of like this zoo animal because of the proportions that were very different. But the sexualization of the female body definitely came with colonialism, feeling like you need to be conservative, that you need to cover up. It kind of brings about a curiosity about the female body, that it's not the normal, like it's not the norm. But if we had just stayed how we were, naked, a lot of things would be safer. And this was then exaggerated by capitalism and toxic masculinity, and also industrialization, because I want to believe that industrialization is a patriarchal ideal, well, to the extent that it's been done now, especially when we think about AI, when we think about removing emotions, all these different things. Corporate culture to me is literally acting. I don't understand how people do that. Like, everyone's writing emails. I hate emails because I don't feel like I'm talking to people. Also, when we talk about how you have to speak to people, and I also feel like it's a very unsafe situation for women. Like, men are always asking for very sexual favors just to move up in the industry, and men think that's okay, but it's really not, because no one, yeah. Anyways, another way that we see misogyny comes about is patriarchal parenting. A lot of how we are parented is in a very patriarchal way, with violence. You are beaten, you are shown that you have to be apathetic, that Kenya is not a good place, you have to be tough, you have to be like this. So I really, guys, like, a lot of things come from this patriarchy thing. Like, we should really work to remove it. Like, a lot of parenting is very patriarchal. So we start with the origin of patriarchy, fear of being controlled. This leads to the hate of women. It leads to them seeing as beneath them. This is then patriarchy starting. Right? So we get toxic masculinity because men have to be apathetic. They must act as if they don't care about women. They don't care about emotions. They cannot act like us. No, no, no. They cannot cry, apparently. They're in their own jail cell. And this leads to an economic system based on domination and competition, our best friend capitalism. Yes. Then this unsustainable system needs cheap labor. What do the white people do? They're like, wow, there are people on the other side of the world and they do not have guns. And we can make them fight against each other as well. So that's fire. So let's go and create slaves. And then let's do round 2 and do colonialism. That's how we got that, as cheap labor. And this brought about misogyny, again, because specifically the hate of Black women. And this is also imperialism and neocolonialism. So those are kind of what we have. We'll talk about Kenyan capitalism specifically, especially in the context of Kenyan feminism, is that there's a wealth gap. And because of this wealth gap, different women have very different realities. And it's very important to talk about it as Kenyan feminists, because we have to talk about how classism affects women. How having these different class divisions makes more, like, areas more unsafe for certain women. I think we talked about this a lot with my friends when we went to Maandamano, how I felt as if men treated women very differently depending on their socioeconomic class. If they felt like when you Bombay, or they felt like you are middle class, then they were very nice. But I'm thinking about how many working class women before that had actually participated in all these different protests and still got no type of respect. You go back home to beat women, especially with the women that were raped during the recent protests. What if they just, had a car to actually go home? What would that have looked like? What if they could have been picked up, could have taken an Uber? So we have to really think about how class and how socioeconomic divides and how capitalism, Kenyan capitalism, affects women itself. Now, Jesus. Okay, and then we have the focus on industrialization, because I said that is a very patriarchal ideal, because what if I don't feel like going to work today? What does that look like? What about my feelings? Why do I have to care about money all the time? Why am I always maximizing profit? Why is that my only thing that I've come to do here? What about, I think also especially when you talk about economics and industrialization, the resources that are being used, they're not being used in a sustainable way. I think one of the reasons I had like a big problem with Marx's teaching in general, when it's not feminist, is talking about how we need to industrialize the whole world, exacerbate all resources all across the world. And it's just like, okay, but we have, okay, I do sustainability sciences, so there's values that we have within nature, our spiritual selves, and that is very important for ethnic groups, that we have a spiritual connection to rivers, that we feel like we are home, like this is something that is very connected to us. I feel like when you've kind of lived in industrialization, it can be kind of hard to picture that, but there is a certain value that we get from being outside and in the sun, even just like biologically, like we need nature around us. And lastly, when we talk about intersectionality, we have to talk about inaccessibility for people with disabilities, that people with disabilities are not really included in anything. They're not really thought about when we talk about schooling, when we think about buildings, roads, like matatus, not really accessible, no. I think a lot of people really, guys, I have my heart, I don't know. I'm really passionate about creating accessibility for people with disabilities, but also normalizing disabilities. Like it's a normal part of life. People will become disabled. People are born disabled. When we are all old, we're low-key disabled. So it's like, guys, let's get to a point where we can help each other out. Yes. And then the answer, why is feminism Kenya's solution? What is feminism itself? Feminism is a belief in a free, equal, and equitable society, which is very, very important to say, equity, not only equality. It is a complete restructuring of societal values. All these different things that we have, that we know, how does that look in a feminist way? What is feminist parenting? What is feminist religion? What is feminist relationships? What does that look like? What do we think we can change and think about how women can be centered, or, children as well? Patriarchal thinking turns to feminist thought. And so, yeah, that is what I would say. It accepts diversity. It accepts LGBTQ persons, people with disabilities. It's something that takes into account different walks of life. It doesn't create a standard for humanity. It understands that just because you are born, you are a worthy human being of everything good and healthy. And that is where we need to come from. We need to, it's the whole reason having different socioeconomic classes doesn't make sense, because there's a dignity that is awarded to wealthy people that is not given to lower income households. It focuses on community. Community comes first. It removes greed and competition. So basically that removes corruption already. It changes how we look at politics, how we look at government, how we look at war itself. I am so anti-war, guy. so anti-war. Just having violence in general, being kinder to other people, how we talk to each other. Your boss should not shout at you. Like, that's crazy. You are a human being. Why are they treating you like that? Also, we need to think about what a feminist economic system looks like, not only one that has been pioneered by men. Very many different books on economics have been, like the biggest ones are just written by old white men. What does that look like in an African feminist way when someone actually writes an economic book based on African and feminine values? I'm working on that, so soon. It also doesn't focus on profit maximization, but rather accessibility for everyone, for disabled people, because a lot of the time especially when we come to third world countries. It's just they cannot even afford to have accessibility for disabled people. What does that look like when we just want to make sure that everyone feels safe? The removal of war and violence, of course, and decolonization. What does that look like when we think of ourselves as just as worthy as whiteness, when whiteness is not the thing that we strive towards? What is a Kenyan culture? What does Kenya look like without having influences from the West? What can Westlands look like without whatever's happening right now, without gentrification? Now, I'm gonna go through my Kenyan feminist rule book. I hope I don't make people mad, but like you can, I don't know if you guys want to interject, but I will start with number 1. I would think that the first thing an African feminist should do is decenter marriage and romance from your life. As soon as you want to get married really bad, you are going to do crazy things to get a man into your household, and that man is going to take advantage of that. A lot of the times, especially when we go to the village and all these different things, women are raised to be wives. There's people telling you this is how you're supposed to dress if you want to be a wife. This is how you ought to be acting. You need to love cooking. I hate domestic labor. So it's like once you decenter marriage and romance, thinking that you need a man in your life, you can very much be like a really good feminist. Number 2, you have to accept the reality of the situation. This is patriarchy. Feminism has not come through yet. Like, we are not there. We also propagate patriarchy as women. It is something that we need to do. All our actions. What are we doing that kind of centers men? What are we doing that centers capitalism? All these different things. These are things that we have to think about every single day. Number 3 is be lazy. Don't do housework. Why are you doing housework? Do your own work. Like, I go to Shags, I'm like, yo, I don't want to cook right now, so I'm not going to cook. So, because my thing is, why is my brother sitting down and I'm standing? Like, no, that is not going to happen. Number 4, all men owe you money. All of them. There is not one that does not owe you money. Because if you think about it, there were years, we got bank accounts a few decades ago. Like, why are you splitting the bill, my sister? What is going on? Like, men don't deserve us. They might as well pay to be here. Exactly. Decenter patriarchal beauty. What is patriarchal beauty? Patriarchal beauty is basically all these different isms that create this perfect woman and what she should look like. But beauty is so much more than that. It's what's on the inside. It's kindness. It looks very differently. It's very different. I like to go out without makeup sometimes, go a long time without doing your nails, appreciate yourself. I go on TikTok looking crazy just because I can. Like, there's no one who can do anything to you. It's very important to accept yourself at a base level. Number 6, create feminist community. You will die if you are around male-centered women. You will actually die. They could be a hazard to you. They could leave you anywhere. They don't look at each other, like, they don't protect each other. Create feminist community. Even men can be feminists. They're not the best at it, but they try. They try the most. You have to find the ones that try the most and always give you money. Remember that. Number 7, misandry is okay. It's fine. It's fine for some women to hate men. It's so okay. I feel like I always say as a feminist, I would feel really, really bad if someone told me about a very traumatic experience that they had with a man, especially if you think about, when we think about Indian women and what they face, and then I'm just like, well, you can't hate men. Like, well, you can, because they did really traumatic stuff. So I understand that. It's also, like, especially we've talked about decentering men, we share very many different pillars with misandrists. And yeah, I think misandry is okay. Number 8, center yourself in all romantic encounters. Do not, I don't know, a lot of women, we're kind of taught to cater for a lot of people, children, men, our elders, how they feel. But what about you, how you feel? Did you like what happened? Did you like that conversation? No, you didn't. And you have to tell him. Like, you have to be like, that was crazy. You like read a book, bro, or something. Like, you have to center how you feel and how comfortable you are with someone. A lot of people, again, decentering marriage is so important because you can sit through a lot of BS because you want to get married, but that should not be the case. Number 9, make your own money. I feel like that's definitely needed. Make your own money. Don't share it with a man. He shares his with you. Exactly. Because you need a way to get out if something happens, especially if you think about the fact that in lower income households, a lot of women might be really, really dependent on their male breadwinner, and that's why they would stay in very unsafe situations. And yeah, that's something that's really important, is being able to go to school, getting education. Do not be a child wife. What? No, that's not a thing that can help us in this Kenya. No, he will kill you. So you need to actually make your own money and get out. Number 10 is be kind. I think that a lot of feminism is about kindness and a lot of about acceptance and speaking to people well and being open and honest and caring about people's time and being punctual. Yes. So yeah, we're going to go through my micro-feminisms and things that I do all the time to be feminist. Number 1, I don't address women's boyfriends. I don't speak to them. I call people Mr. Stephanie. I call people, I don't talk to them. He does not exist to me. I don't know him. Also the same thing with always thinking that any profession, it's a woman. Like, it's a doctor, she. It's a police woman, she. I'd always say she instead of, and then I like to be correct to be like he, but like I always just say she as the base one. I have body hair most of the year, a lot of the year. Yeah, so people should really, really do that. Men must prove themselves around me. Until you can prove yourself as a good person, I don't really trust you. I don't really want to like, it's basically moving mountains to be my friend. Like, you must show me, why should I be around you? You're going to kill me? Like, am I going to be a statistic? Because, you know, a lot of femicide is actually by people that the women know. So they have to prove themselves. I only sit next to women in matatus. I do not, if that seat is not next like to a woman, I'm like, crazy, I might leave. I think we do that. Like, when a matatu is only full of men, we just walk out. That's a scary situation that we do not need to find ourselves in. Yes, I was going to ask if you guys do any micro-feminisms or not. Or like, have I given you some inspiration? Okay, yeah. We are going to play, is this feminist or not? Number 1, splitting the bill. Exactly. They will lie to you and tell you it's all about equality, but they are lying. They do not want to pay for their grievances. Why would you be around a man? Okay, sorry. Let me relax. I'm not a misandrist. Not a misandrist. Weekly beauty maintenance. Weekly beauty, like nails done, hair done, everything done. Guys, I don't think it's feminist because men don't do that. Why are we doing it? We're not robots. Is it for ourselves? If you guys went on YouTube and then you searched my name, you would see beauty as a tool of patriarchal oppression. It's a 30-minute video essay in which I talk about how beauty is used to harm women. A lot of the disordered eating, body dysmorphia is mostly experienced by women themselves. I think for me, I realized beauty is not a thing when I was sitting in a crowded salon in town and it was so hot and there were no men here doing the same thing. And I was just like, yeah, no, I am in hell itself. I think there's a lot of, also I feel like women put a lot of value on beauty, on how they feel. So if we talk about self-care, why is our self-care only shallowish? Like, shouldn't we also be, if like weekly maintenance for yourself should be like going to yoga and therapists and practicing giving back to the community. But why is it nails, hair, makeup? Like, we need to think about that. Okay, calling women Mali Safi, feminist or not. You don't, size yangu, oh my God. Remaining barren. Remaining barren without kids, going childless. Oh my God, it's not barren. Yeah, remaining childless. Let me say remaining childless. I mean, I was gonna remove my uterus, but that is why I said that. Remaining childless. Exactly, because we stopped giving capitalism labor. Exactly. Also, because it's painful and they should have already made another different way to give birth. So that's crazy that we're still here. It's because we can do it. Anyways, that was the end of my lecture. I hope you guys liked.